Hello and welcome to the Serpent Temple podcast. This week we are going to be reviewing two new albums. The first one is going to be Communion by Gravelines, and the second is going to be Hiss by Wormrot. And then we're going to be tacking on a fun interview that we did at Hellfest onto the end as well. So you can listen to that and or watch. But first, Floyd, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Not too bad. I went to watch Thor Love and Thunder the other day.
Nice. How was it? Everyone is very Marmite about it.
I loved it.
Yeah?
I thought it was great. Do you know what? I don't give as much of a shit about the MCU franchise as a lot of other people. So I feel like when you're not like that heavily invested into how like the overall like story arcs are going to progress, you can enjoy these films so much more. But like quite enjoyed that. What else? Yeah, just sweating my balls off. It reached 40 degrees the other day, which was interesting.
You got a taste of Hellfest.
Yeah. Where were you the 40-degree day?
At home, dying. Because English houses are like designed to be hot.
Yeah, that was the one day I wish I was at my mum's house because, I mean, you would have seen it. She's got really high ceilings, so it retains a lot of like coolness. But yeah, it's funny. I remember I was going to the gym that day, and throughout the whole day I was thinking to myself, I might have to sack this on the head because and it was so annoying because I get the 29 bus from near where I live in Camden.
You just doxed yourself.
Huh?
You just doxed yourself.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Did I?
I don't know. Maybe.
But it was. I was waiting on the 29 bus, and like there is no cloud cover or shade near that bus stop.
And they're like greenhouses with wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, this wasn't even on the bus yet. This was just at the bus stop.
Oh.
Like there's no cloud cover there, and basically normally the 29 comes very regularly. Like the most I've ever had to wait is like sort of like 4 or 5 minutes. I waited fucking 15 minutes for this bus in the searing heat, and I was thinking of all days for these buses to be running late. But yeah, I got to the gym, and the aircon was so amazing that I ended up just spending most of the day at the gym, just taking my time, because I was thinking this is still less taxing than just standing outside.
It was horrific. Like it happened at Hellfest, but it was worse here because it's muggier, so there's more humidity. So it's like breathing soup the whole day.
Yeah.
And I think I tried to drink my water and it burned me again. And then I ended up having to get like a bucket and putting ice cubes and cold water in it for my feet, and that was the only thing that saved me, I swear.
I saw a good hack, which was if you strap like an ice pack to like the back of a fan.
Oh, yeah.
Or the front of a fan even, then you get like some nice cool
ice air. Because yeah, otherwise it's just like having tea blown into your face.
Yeah, no, it's just, yeah, because that's the problem with fans, isn't it? I mean, they just really dry out your throat. Max had, my brother had, he bought a couple of those Dyson fans, you know, the ones that recirculate
those are like
the air.
really expensive but cool.
Yeah, they're super cool though. They've got like the rings, and they actually do make a big difference.
Do they heat as well?
I think you can get some that are 2-in-1s.
Okay.
Don't trust the 2-in-1s though. Well, it just doesn't seem...
It's too good to be true.
You've got a machine that can do both. Just like, you've either got one that's really good at one or one that's really good at the other.
That's funny.
The notion that one can do both competently just doesn't sit right with me. It keeps me up at night.
I think on that note, we should go to something equally terrifying and brilliant and wonderful.
Yep, so
if not more.
So this is Graveline's third album, Communion.
Yes.
Lineup is more or less the same. Got different drummer this time around.
Indeed.
So you've got Jake Harden on vocals, Ollie on guitars, Sam Chase, who's the new drummer, and Staggering Matt on bass.
Staggering Matt, yeah.
So obviously Matt and Jake, previous guests on the show.
Yes.
That was always a fun episode, wasn't it? That was a good intense 3 hours.
I think we'll have them back on hopefully soon at some point. Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that from having spoken to them in person, you can totally see where they're coming from and their musical output. Like the way they are as people is totally reflected.
Yes, totally.
In the style of their music. But saying that, if there's one thing if I could give like an overall like blurb of this album, I feel like this is more of a refined modern approach compared to the previous two albums. I feel like there was a lot more like doom and gloom on their two first albums, whereas this one, I think I really like how they've continued to incorporate different elements. Like there's one track in particular which was just give me a second. Taconid,
yeah.
Which was really cool, kind of like more industrial, and it had like Jake was doing these weird kind of like yelled, almost like narrator style vocals, and it was just like there's some cool industrial elements on the album, and I quite like how a lot of the track titles are named after parasitic
all of
creatures.
them are.
Is it all of them?
All of them. I actually did loads of research
No.
into
Let's
what
hear
each
it.
one does because they're really cool, and Parasites are kind of awesome and creepy and awesome. Yeah. But I can go through those in a bit. But Taconid is, I think, I agree, is like a really standout track because it starts with a synth, right?
Yeah.
And it's got that Killing Joke style, like distorted vocal with loads of gain on it. And Jake's like, yeah, I really like that track a lot.
But I feel like, yeah, overall, the track Lycanade, which I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. That's the longest track on the album. And I feel like the whole album is kind of anchored and centered around that track. So it's about 11, sort of 12 minutes long. But it's just such a great... There's one thing I love in music, and especially with artists that are not afraid to take the time to write a long track. Part of the reason why I love Enslaved so much is I love it when a band takes the time to build to a climax in the track and then is not afraid to also have like that descent and that come down. Like, you know, I think the structure of a long song is so important as to whether or not it's going to be enjoyable as a song. I feel like there's a lot of bands out there who are instrumentally and very gifted, but like it could just be a bit of a drag when it's just so much of the same for so long. And there's very few bands that could get away with doing that. I think Sleep are one of them.
Yeah.
And bands like Electric Wizards as well. You know, bands are literally masters of that monotone, repetitive style.
They're masters of a particular atmosphere, I feel.
Yeah.
But Gravelines, I think, have done that, but with a lot of variation and development as well. And I think you can really hear on this album, like the growth that the band has gone through over the past few years.
Yeah. No, yeah, just totally agreed. Really like the track Carcini. I'm just pronouncing it like an Italian mobster because I just think it sounds cooler that way.
Carcini.
Carcini.
Where is my Carcini?
Just a parasitic crab, not the kind I normally have.
It's like a worm that feeds on the crab, I think.
Oh, is it?
I
Oh,
think
is it?
they
Okay.
wait, hang on, because I wrote it down. Yeah, it's the crab hacker barnacle, Salucinia carcini. It's a species of parasitic barnacle in the family Saturninidae. I'm just doing all the Latin and Italian accents now because it's fun.
And I speak Latin.
Latina Italia. I don't know what that was, but yes. But yeah, apparently the males and the females express differently. The males, funnily enough, are basically just sacks of cum. That's all they're for. The male parasites are hang on. I love the way they scientifically say it because it literally just says they're only for reproduction, which is great. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of deeper meaning here. I couldn't find lyrics for this. I mean, I can make out.
I couldn't find lyrics, but I did hear bits and pieces, and I loved what I did hear.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
the great thing is he's great at enunciating his words and like singing and / screaming with such passion that it's actually you can very clearly hear what he's saying a lot of the time. I just didn't have the time to really write down or note any of it.
Yeah, Jake's got one of my favorite voices, like vocal tonalities in the whole scene. Honestly, I think he's a seriously underrated singer.
I think he's a great vocalist. And it's like, I remember actually talking with him about this when he was guesting on the show. And I think, you know, part of the reason why I think he works so well is because like you can tell that is his raw voice.
Yeah, it's
like he's
him.
not doing any false chords. There's no fry screaming. Like that's his actual like raw voice that's coming out. And I think that's something that kind of gets a bit lost in the scene, especially within like the murkier subgenres, especially within death and black metal, because a lot of the time it's just techniques to make it sound a certain way or to emulate a style that's already been done a million times before. But like, you know, when I hear Jake's vocals, I think that is his voice. I think it's quite unmistakable.
I think a lot of people are afraid to use their true voice. I feel like there's a lot of sort of expectation with the artists themselves and from the audience, for not all audience, some audiences, to sound a particular way. And I think it takes like I just like that Jake is just unapologetically doing his thing, and his voice is unique. Like I can't think of anyone else that sounds like him in the doom scene. If anyone sounds similar, I'd think of like, you know, like Dead Can Dance, like the male vocals in that, like stuff from the 80s and 90s. And I think that's fucking sick. Like there needs to be more vocals like that. And I think everyone in the band, you can hear them in the music.
Yeah.
Because they're all really cool guys and they all have like very distinct personalities, and you can feel that all coming together, which is why I love this album.
Yeah, it's a great album. It really is. And, you know, to that point you were saying about hearing everyone in the band, I think the bass sounds amazing on this album.
Yeah.
Like, it really is just... And it's such a tricky thing to do in, like, the metal / heavy music scene, because it either kind of just blends in and ends up mirroring the guitar, or it ends up being, so apart from the music that it kind of takes away from the overall like cohesion of the song. But like not on this album, I feel like the tone is immense. Like it's got that deep rumbling kind of like subterranean sound, but it's not like, it's still quite clean.
Yeah,
which is what I really like.
Yeah.
And there's just certain moments in the album that I really enjoyed, like the track Carcini. I was saying that gives me a bit of a Candlemass-y kind of vibe at certain points. And even the vocals, I feel like Jake, he's kind of like singing with more of like a Malcolm Messiah-esque kind of like timbre. When there's like is it ululating you call it?
Ululations?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean vibrato?
Vibrato, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I spent ages trying to think of that word yesterday. I was like, fuck, what is that word? That's exactly the word I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, overall, I was super, super impressed with this album. I think it's an album that could potentially maybe catapult them a bit more into the overall consciousness of the scene as well. Because it's after seeing them live at Bloodstock last year as well, like, and known how much they put on a good live show as well. It'd be exciting to see where they go next with this in terms of how they market the album and who they end up going on tours with and stuff. And
they opened for like Ministry last year, didn't they?
That's wild.
Such a cool place, such a cool gig for them to be on. Like, I would love to be in a crowd in that kind of like, I love like multi-genre, cross-genre things. And there's like a lot of industrial, a lot of doom. There's like, I mean, Jake's distorted vocals are sick as well. Like there's so much variation. This is like a very flexible, this would be a really flexible billing of a lot of bands. It would sound good.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think to add on to the point about there being a lot of industrial influence, like the last track, Sinensis.
That's my favorite track.
That was a great track because I think that's got a real cool blend of like the industrial elements. I love the way how it ends with like just the synth just pulsing.
Yeah,
I just thought it was super cool. And like actually his clean vocals there, like he's a great clean vocalist as well as a harsh vocalist. It really kind of reminded me of like Michael Ackerfeld's best moments at times.
Yeah, I see that. It's such a honeyed like sweet voice, but it's not saccharine in like he's not putting it on. He just has like this smooth caramel voice.
Yeah.
Sounds like I'm describing a chocolate bar, but I'm not. When I first heard this track, and Shem can confirm, I started like when the harmonies kick in, I was like, oh, I just started like yelling. I was like so excited by it. I just thought it was so good that I had like a physical reaction. Because it's awesome, and I don't think people use harmonies enough. And this is the kind of song that I would love to write. I was like, I wish I wrote this song when I listened to it. I mean, there's like there's a lyric in this one that really stood out to me. It was like, I think the lies become a circle. That's so sick. And the song is actually based on it's a fungus that grows on insects. Oh man, can I pronounce this? In the family Ophiocordis I think, found in meadows 3,500 meters in the Tibetan Plateau in southwest China and the Himalayan regions of Bhutan and Nepal, and it parasitizes the larvae of ghost moths, which is really cool. But it's used as a herbal remedy in traditional Chinese medicine, but because it's actually quite toxic. It's got arsenic and heavy metals, so it's been strictly kind of like regulated by the CFDA. And they look really weird. They're like the length of a match, and they just grow on moths.
Really?
Yeah.
Grow on moths? Christ.
There's some crazy parasites in this album.
Yeah. Damn.
I knew a few of them already, but I learned about some really cool ones because Jake loves insects. He loves animals in the natural world, which is awesome.
Yeah, the brood sack caught my attention, just the name of it.
I know. It's a good insult.
Yeah.
Yeah, calling someone a brood sack.
Insult.
It is. It's like, an unmarried woman in her 30s.
Yeah, brood sack.
Yeah, because when you're like 26, you become a fawnback. Because a spinster is like an unmarried sort of like 21-year-old. And then a fawnback is like, I think when you're 26 plus, you become a fawnback.
See, in my mind, I thought spinsters were older.
I think that's what how we use the word colloquially now. But back then it was a younger unmarried woman. Okay. But the older you get, the worse the names become. So
the vast majority of young people today are spinsters, really, because no one really wants to get married or have kids too much these days, do they?
No, they don't. People don't want to do that. I'm a fawnback. Yeah. Proud. Yeah. The what's the brood sack? We talked about that. That was the crab one, wasn't it?
So I had it noted as a parasitic flatworm. Oh
yeah, those are the ones that can be like 2 meters long.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's wild.
It's wild. Parasites are fucking cool, man. It's a green banded broodsac, parasitic flatworm. Usually, oh yeah, these ones are interesting. They it's not the 2 meter ones. These ones use snail eyes as hosts, and they imitate caterpillars on the eye of the snail, which attracts birds because they eat snails. So they get eaten by the bird, and then they use the bird as the primary host.
Wow, that's pretty just insane, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
It's really cool. So the adult parasite lives in the bird's cloaca and releases its eggs into the feces of the bird. So if a bird poos on you, it's going to have brood sacs in it, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got shot once when I was a kid. Only happened once. I know some people it's happened numerous times. But...
Twice in 1 week for me.
Really?
Yeah, when I was a
really
kid
unlucky.
as well. It was the worst.
God.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know why, but just speaking about parasites so much just reminds me of this funny picture I saw online. Have you seen that weird website, right? That DALL-E generator that auto-generates the images you type in?
I love that website.
This one, I found one today and it was a great one. It's a, you know the tardigrade, the one that could like live in space.
They're so
it's
cute.
a tardigrade and a dachshund playing together at the dog park.
It looks like a dog. Oh my God.
I thought it was really cute and wholesome.
It looks like, you know those dogs with loads of skin?
Oh yeah, the Shar-Pei.
Shar-Pei.
Yeah.
Together we got there.
They're the ones with the blue tongues as well.
Maybe. You know why they have so much skin?
Why?
Because they were actually bred to be fighting dogs. So the idea was like when they would bite each other, they wouldn't bite through flesh, they'd just bite through the skin so they wouldn't get like really terrible wounds so they could keep fighting, which is really unethical. I don't agree with it, but that's why they have loads of skin.
Oh, nice. So we've covered the biological reason why Shar-Peis have got loads of skin, and we've delved into the parasitic
Bird poo.
community. So what else have I got to say about this album? It's just really fucking good, really. I mean, that's the be-all and end-all, I think. It's kind of it's funny, isn't it? Because we only really review albums we know we're kind of gonna like. So I think sorry to anybody expecting us to review something and absolutely shit on it, but we're just not going to review anything.
There's no point. No one wants to. No. Yeah, maybe we'll do like a hot take video on YouTube one day. But even then,
yeah, I don't know.
we have some hot takes.
I'm trying to think what hot takes I have. It's funny because I'm so fucking self-absorbed. I'm thinking, is that a hot take? Or is that just what everyone else thinks?
That's the truth. It's not a hot take.
That's not a hot take.
Yeah. I mean, if you want, I can go into some of the untalked about parasites on this album.
Well, if you want, I'd say go for it, yeah.
I do want to, actually. So the first song, Gordian. The Gordian, you know what a Gordian knot is?
I looked this up, but I forgot to write it down.
Fair enough. So the word Gordian comes from, I can't remember, I didn't actually look this one up. I just remembered it and then forgot. But there's this sort of like story about Alexander the Great where he goes to a place and they challenge him to untie the Gordian knot, which is supposed to be like an untieable knot. So he solves it by just cutting through it with his sword. And he's like, I did it. Ha ha ha. And then everyone's like, yeah, well done, Alexander the Great. You're so intelligent and a great conqueror. This is how leaders think, blah, blah, blah. But this worm is kind of named after the whole like Gordian entanglement idea. They're commonly known as horsehair worms or hair snakes, which is kind of freaky. And those are the ones that can be like 2 meters long. And they kind of live in like damp areas, watering troughs, swimming pools. Don't go to the swimming pools. The adult worms are free living, which sounds like they kind of like wear crystals and drink like kefir or something, which is cute. But they usually lay their eggs in like beetles and crotch.
And crotch. Shem's got a picture of it.
Oh, that's so freaky. Oh my God. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So don't eat beetles or crotches. The next song.
I will follow the advice of one of those things.
No more
Funny enough, I formed a Gordian knot most days when I pull my headphones out of my pocket.
Oh my God.
The fucking unsolvable knot right there.
Maybe those are the parasites that like feed on human mental distress. Yeah. The next song is Agrifaga, perhaps, which is named after Hymenopimysis agrifaga, which is a Costa Rican parasitoid wasp, which is one of the most famous sort of freaky parasites. This parasite made a biologist actually lose faith in God. When he studied this parasite for the first time, he was like, this is so fucked that God can't be real. which is
Because
awesome.
no sentient, omnipresent power could create something this
Fucked up.
this brutal. Okay.
And this is how brutal this is. So it's a wasp, and the way that it reproduces is that it will lay its eggs on top of on a spider, on a tarantula. And the way it does that is that usually there's two ways it does it. Either it tricks the spider into thinking it's been caught in the spider's web by getting like fake caught in the web, and then it will sting the spider continuously for 2 minutes and lay its eggs on like the sort of bit of a spider. And then when the eggs hatch, they will the larvae will burrow their way into the tarantula and then eat the tarantula alive.
That's making my skin crawl. It's horrible.
It's pretty intense, isn't it?
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Are you looking that up, Shem? God.
That's you don't want to be reincarnated as one of those.
Fuck.
Yeah. And then the next one, which I think might be my favorite, was the Lycaenid, which is a kind of butterfly, and I did not know that there were parasitic butterflies.
Oh.
They're really beautiful. But what they do is they kind of get ants to serve them. They're like the dominatrix parasites of the animal world. So what they do is there are many different species, and all of them have different kinds of associations with ants. One of the ways they do it is they will induce ants to feed them via regurgitation in a process called trophallaxis, which is basically where like the ants are just going to vomit food into their mouths. Usually it's the larvae, so they'll usually lay their larvae in ant nests. And they have glands that produce secretions that attract and subdue ants. So these butterflies just smell like sexy to ants, and the ants are like, I will do anything for you. And they basically, the larvae will produce vibrations and low sounds that they use to communicate with ants. So the butterflies have learned how to talk to ants and make ants want to be their slaves, which is crazy. And sometimes they're mutualistic. What they do, so 75% of species apparently have a relationship with them called myrmecephaly, where they will kind of produce a kind of rich, sugary honeydew for the ants. So they have like a sort of exchange feature. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff about the butterflies and the ant relationships, which I think is kind of crazy.
That's mad. I had no idea of any of this. So I think DreamWorks, you've got your plot for your next Ants movie right there. It's been, 20 years since the last one? Ants 2, the rise of the fucking
R-rated ants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about the tachinids. They're a fly. They parasitic. Oh, no, we didn't talk about these ones. They're a kind of, there's like 200, no, they're not 200. They have 200 different hosts, this parasite, and it's a class of fly. And they're actually used as biological pest control by farmers. Not all of them, because some of them are generalists and they will like kill too much stuff. But they'll basically like fuck up other insects by the sounds of it. And then we had the crab hacker. We had the brood sac, and then sinensis was the fungus. So I think we've done all the parasites.
Damn, that's. Yeah, you would have to have an interest in this to know all that, right? You couldn't just willy-nilly decide on a concept like this and just do it half-assed, yeah.
Yeah. One of the best lyrics I heard that really like made me shudder in a good way was I think it's in Broodsack where Jake screams, "You can feel it scrape the inside of your skull." Ooh. Which is a cool lyric, especially in this concept, because he's talking about like a worm just like scraping against your skull, which would be an intense feeling.
I know that. I'm guessing like a lot of these parasites are allegorical for the kind of sort of like
perhaps
maybe cultural and societal parasites that there are.
We have a few,
as well as the. It's saying all this, I feel like this is more of a positive album than the previous one. Still,
yeah, I love this album. Yeah, it's definitely there's less self-hatred from. Yeah. But I have not listened to all the lyrics properly yet. I've only listened to it a few times. I will be going back to this a lot.
Cool album cover as well. Love the album cover. It's great. I forgot to make a note of who it was that did the album cover. But,
damn, me too.
But no, it was, it's overall a great fucking effort.
Yeah, they're playing a album release show on Friday, 29th of July at Club 229.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's Club 229 again. So.
It's Great Portland Street. It's a really nice venue. It's quite big.
Great Portland Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
We played there once many years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Should we move on to Wormrot?
Let's do it.
To Hiss.
So Wormrot an interesting one for me because basically been following them since their inception in like the early 2010s, and one thing I've noticed, which they've continued with this album, is they've made the progression of kind of starting off as just standard kind of grind band, like just short bursts of 40-second songs, similar to like bands like Insect Warfare, and some of them are more than grind bands. And I feel like they've done a really good job especially with Voices, the 2016 album, and now this album. I think they've done a really great job of incorporating so many different elements from so many different subgenres. Like this album alone, there's a heavy thrash influence on this album.
Yeah, totally.
Like a crossover, like thrash kind of feel. There's a lot of post-hardcore as well, I feel, which was quite a cool addition, which I hadn't heard previous to this. Like a little bit of black metal, obviously death metal, grind. It's such a well-rounded extreme metal album. I was thoroughly impressed with this. And for me personally, I think it's a great addition to their discography. I don't think we've ever talked about Wormrot before, so I don't know what your preconception of the band was, or if you had much experience with the band. I know you're not the biggest on grind, or not the biggest, but like it's never been one of the subgenres you've really delved into too much, is it?
I used to love grind.
Oh, fair.
So I also started following them around 2011, and they formed in 2007.
Oh, that long ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
I saw them play the Grosvenor, I think around 2011, 2012. I think it was one of their first UK shows ever.
Oh, nice.
And there was literally like 50 people there. It was a tiny venue, and they were like, I think it felt like it was in the Round, but I think it was just small and there weren't many people. And this was like a pub in the middle of nowhere in South London. It was crazy. It was such a good show as well. Like I really... they're the kind of band that I don't listen to much grind, and I don't listen to much anymore, although I still have a t-shirt that I bought at that show. So it's like, how long ago was that? Like over 10 years ago.
Has it got like the sick logo in like
it's got the skull
yeah.
and the red characters down the side. I love that shirt. It's a really nice shirt. I never wear it. I need to find it. Like I really like that band, and they're really nice people. Their drummer disappeared. Did you ever see that? Their drummer just like took off one day.
Well, I vaguely remember something about the drummer, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also know that this is the vocalist's last album. He's since left the band. So I think at the moment it's just the guitarist but the drummer's back now, right? Or is it the same drummer?
A different drummer. I think it's a different drummer, because he just because if you go on the Bandcamp, you can see their Tumblr. They've got a link to their Tumblr. And it's not been updated since like 2011, 2012. And like one of the last posts is them being like, yeah, this guy's just like taken off again, and we haven't heard from him in weeks. So we're just going to release this album. We're going into the studio, and I guess we're not with this guy in the band anymore. So I doubt that they've got back with that particular guy.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be with a band member that flaky, I suppose, could you?
Nah, I doubt they would have been this big and they're successful if they'd stayed with someone who was like not reliable in that way. But yeah, they've gone really far in that time, and they are definitely, I would argue, one of the best contemporary grindcore bands on this planet right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd even go one further and say they're one of the best contemporary, just extreme music bands, because it's they got some great exposure a few years back. Because I know they played Glastonbury. Because
they played. Was that the Metallica year?
I can't remember if it was a Metallica year, but basically they had like this little thing with Earache.
Yeah.
Because they had Napalm play.
Because Earache had a stage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what it was. Yeah. So they had Napalm, and obviously Wormrot had been with Earache for the last 3 albums, I think. So pretty much the majority of their career now. So they played at Glastonbury. I think the first ever grindcore band. Well, I mean, second after Napalm Death. Yeah. But they probably would have went on before Napalm Death, so they would have been the first one to play. So.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and obviously it's quite cool. And then obviously Turnstile played there this year, so that was some good exposure for them.
They're the perfect band for Glastonbury.
Yeah. They're going to go on to like some next crazy exposure, I think, and new unprecedented heights for hardcore. But like, I think after listening to this album, you could definitely see that they're making a concerted effort to broaden their horizons a bit and, cast a bit of a wider net in terms of their musical influences. I have to say, of all the albums we've ever reviewed, this has been the one that's been the fucking hardest to take notes for, because by the time I finish writing the sentence,
the next song started.
the next song's on, so I'm like, fuck, I've got to be quick. But just going through, there's one thing that stood out in particular, maybe just because it was the last track, but the last track, Glass Shards. And he said glass, which I knew you would have absolutely have lost your shit at. But glass. Glass Shards, I think, is such a fucking amazing track. I've already mentioned them once in the podcast again, so this will be the last time I mention them, but it does remind me of Enslaved a little bit. I just love the tone of everything, the guitars, the bass. The violin, the guest violinist they have on the album is amazing, because in the two other tracks prior to this, like, the violin is used in a way that's really, like, cacophonous and, like, aggressive. Like, normally I'm so used to hearing violins and
sad
then being...
violin.
Yeah. But, like... And those previous two tracks, which featured the violin, I've got it in my notes, but I can't remember the top of my head. And this track, I really like, because it was a bit more of a standard use of the violin, but I think it was just executed so well. It really reminded me a bit of the band Ne Obliviscaris. If you ever listen to them much, but they've got they've got two vocalists. They've got a harsh vocalist and they've got a clean vocalist who's also their violinist. So there's a lot of like prominent violin in the music, and it's not like gimmicky, because sometimes when you listen to metal and they've got violin, it could just be a bit like, okay, well, this is just tacked on just to add a bit of atmosphere, quote unquote. But like the way that Wormrot do it is a way that I've never really heard it used in any extreme or sort of metal album previous to this. So just super impressed. There's so many cool parts in the album. Just there's so many like sick like breakdowns and like sort of like thrashy riffs and like kind of like two-steppy style riffs. It's just so good. God, and then you've got like your classic like shorter like grind bangers like this. So they've got enough in there to appease the fans of like the more traditional like grind sound. And they just kind of remind me of like, and this is not to say like I've always been a big Pig Destroyer fan. Right, but like I feel like they're in like the twilight of their career now, because they have been around for a while, and I feel like the last album was just a bit more kind of run of the mill. But there was a point where Pig Destroyer were also that band they were the ones that were doing the exciting things and grind, taking steps forward, like having a 20-minute Doom song and loads of other like cool like ideas and concepts within a genre that I think is often quite typecast. I think people have got a misconception that grind is quite one-dimensional when it's not at all. And now I think Wormrot have taken on the mantle that Pig Destroyer had, and being that band that brings grind or grind-based music to the consciousness of people's mind within the scene, and making them realize that there's more to it than just 8-second songs and a guy screaming.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is that is all there is to a track. But...
Yeah, these guys had like the best encore I've ever seen at a live show, where they were like, okay, we're going to play an encore, and it was like 3 seconds.
Love it.
It was so tongue-in-cheek about it.
That's like Napalm Death when they do You Suffer, and they play it 3 times.
Yeah, this is great. I don't think I listened to the previous album. I've not listened to them for a few years, but I've always known I love them. It was just kind of one of those bands I need to be reminded that they're like a band that I really love. So when I heard the clean vocals in, I think, Broken Maze.
Oh yeah, the Sexuality has a clean vocals, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what? I thought I was listening to the wrong band for a second. It really took me by surprise. I really liked, what was it? I like how the beginning of the album starts with like relaxing water sounds. Yeah, so I was like, spa moment, and then it starts like clobbering you around the head with like the riffs, and I loved the delay on the blah at the beginning of Behind Closed Doors.
I love a good blah.
I love a good blah. I love that they added the delay to it, so it's like there's a few blahs at the end that echo around you. I think, I don't know, I didn't look into it, but Shem was saying that apparently there's a lot of tributes to Riley Gale and Power Trip Easter eggs in this album. I do wonder if that's it.
That makes so much fucking sense when you listen to the music. And like I feel like when I think about it, even like a lot of the vocal cadences, because there's a lot of like moments on here where the vocals are a bit more like sort of thrash-esque.
Yeah, totally.
I totally hear that now. That makes so much fucking sense. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
I haven't like Googled it, but I'm assuming that it's true.
Yeah, and apparently Power Trip is still going. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're still active as a band. I think they mentioned the other month that they were working on new music. So
I hope they do keep going, because like Riley was a legend, and I'm so sad that he's gone. But I feel like they still have albums in them.
Yeah,
and they should
definitely.
keep going. Yeah.
It's just, I suppose the bigger one is what Black Dahlia Murder are going to do. I mean, that was just I'm still shocked over that. I couldn't believe that. So obviously they're scheduled to play Bloodstock this year, but I can't remember who's replacing them. But it's just absolute crazy. It's always a shock when someone younger goes in the scene.
It is really. Yeah.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, if I hate to say it, but if like Bobby Lieveling kicked the bucket tomorrow,
I would be. I don't want to laugh. I shouldn't have laughed, but this.
You're not going to get many people like with a shocked expression on that one, are you?
I honestly I'm surprised he's still alive.
Yeah.
And after seeing him in person, that man is frail.
God.
Yeah.
It's like Lemmy as well. Like, I think people were more shocked at the fact that he was still alive than the fact that when he actually died, people were just like, God, he hung on much longer than I expected him to.
Same with Ozzy. Ozzy's like that too. It's a miracle that he's still walking around.
God, yeah, he's still going, isn't he?
Yeah, he must be in his 80s now, surely.
Nah, surely not.
Hang on, this.
I think Ozzy's like my parents' age, if I had to guess. The only reason I know this is because I know the Beatles have just turned 80, pretty much.
73.
73, I'm not far off.
Nice.
Yeah, he's a little bit older than my parents then. But yeah, no, because he was such a mark or a big fan of the Beatles.
Yeah.
There's this really wholesome scene of Ozzy meeting Paul McCartney. It's like watching him fanboy. It's like, oh, I was such a big fan of your music. And I was
That's
just
so
like,
cute.
the amount of people that would be like that towards Ozzy.
Yeah.
So seeing him be like that towards Paul McCartney was just quite surreal.
That is surreal. Yeah. Who would be your fanboy?
See, I've thought about this sometimes, and I don't know if it'd be either a wrestler or somebody within the music scene.
One from each.
Well, see, I don't know. With work, I think I've kind of trained myself to like mask my emotions pretty well. But there's got to be someone.
Internally, you would be screaming. So
Yeah.
who would make you internally like?
I was a bit taken aback when I met Michael Ackerfeld that one time.
I think I would lose my mind.
I think I only really
silently.
kept it together because he was with his kids. Wrestler wise, it probably would have been The Undertaker before I found out he was basically this Republican boomer.
Oh no!
But like, I have met Bret Hart at a signing because I was a big Bret Hart fan. So, but I think because I anticipated it and knew I was going to get a signing, it wasn't as bad. But I think the problem with wrestlers is, and I suppose this is the same with certain tenets of the music scene. A lot of them are quite scummy now. So it's like they're very problematic people.
Yeah.
In terms of musicians, I've had brief conversations with some of the guys from Enslaved before, but like it was like I said, because of the situation, because I was at a gig and I was like at the front, and it was while they were like tuning up and sound checking and stuff. I was like, that was where I would expect to maybe have a quick conversation with them. Like I got a chance to say thanks to Ivar and I spoke to Grutler once before as well at the Underworld. Trying to think, what musician would it be? Thomas Lindbergh at the Gates. I think if I bumped into him randomly, I'd be really taken aback and I wouldn't know how to act around him. And he does seem like a really cool guy as well. So what would yours be?
God. I would, yes. The person I probably fanboyed the most over when I met them was Jason Momoa. But I didn't actually fanboy, I just sort of my eyes were really wide and I was like, oh God.
Yeah. Is he as big as he looks in the...
Fucking massive. He's 7 foot tall. I remember he put his arm around me and my head reached his nipple. I felt like a child. It was crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah. Musician wise, oh man. I feel like if I met Ackerfeld, I'd be excited, but I don't think I'd embarrass myself. But I probably would embarrass myself. I did when I met one of the Pete French from Atomic Rooster. Shem tried to take a picture of me, and I couldn't hold my face in a normal position. So it's probably a demonstrable time where I've outwardly lost my shit.
And the hilarious thing about that is they're probably just so excited to see someone younger than 50.
They came to us.
The show. They're probably just excited. Yeah.
That was the thing. When they finished playing, the band walked over to us because we were 30 years younger than everyone
for
else.
us.
It was really fun. They were like, what band are you guys in? That was a surreal... We were with Alistair. So together we just looked like a band, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know those people. The moment we finished, I'll think of some
Think of
people.
someone.
Yeah.
Rob Halford would be good. I'd like to meet Rob Halford. I just think
He'd be
he just
so
seems like
cool.
such a wholesome guy. It'd be great just to, like, apparently he's a really good hugger as well.
Really?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. To get a hug from Rob Halford would be quite good.
I'm going to put that on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Even if it was in his bondage gear, I wouldn't mind. Probably enhance the experience.
I think it would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be really squeaky.
Stickier. Yeah. More adhesive.
Lots of creaking sounds. Yeah. I do like that sound, to be fair. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Any final remarks on the albums today?
No, apart from that, I both really enjoyed them and that I highly recommend them.
And now we're going to cut to an interview that we did at Hellfest with Tom G. Warrior.
The legend, the man, the myth, the icon. Wish I was there.
Truly morbid man.
But my passport's on my way. So,
On your way.
So I just need to build a time machine, travel back in time, and then I'll be able to be present there as well.
We'll make it happen. Hopefully we'll do another interview with him and you can be there.
I'm sure I'll be there for the next one.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. But anyway, thank you so much for watching and listening. And feel free to like and subscribe and tell us who we should review next. Thank you and goodbye.
Till next time.
Hello and welcome. Oh, do you need a clap? Yeah, please. Would you mind giving us a clap? Ooh. Yes. This interview is already perfect. Hello and welcome to the Serpent Temple YouTube channel and podcast. I'm here with Tom G. Warrior of Celtic Frost, Triptychon, Apollyon Sun, and Hellhammer. Thank you so much for your time today. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I would love to do a side card reading with you.
All right.
Would that be okay?
Well, let's try this, sure.
Let's try it. So I'm going to pull 3 cards. The first card is going to be your past, the second your present, and the third your future. Obviously, it's not set in stone. We don't believe it in a spiritual sense, but it's to do with Jung's archetypes. So
Right.
each card has a symbol, and we'll explore the symbol together.
All right.
Okay. So the first card, do you want to pick up the first card?
I have to do it. Huh?
You have to do it. I'm sorry.
All right.
Oh, liberation.
Liberation.
So this card is about freedom. This is about how there is a door with a key in the lock, but it doesn't actually have a lock. So sometimes we free ourselves and we trap ourselves.
Right. So does that pertain to my past, my present, or my future?
Your past.
My past.
Yeah.
Well, if I actually have to elaborate on this, I think my entire path in life is liberation, because I chose a path which, at least at that time, was extremely unusual for Switzerland, against a mountain of obstacles and naysayers and people who tried to stop me. But I wanted to live my own life, and I wanted to guide my own life to the extent possible in our society. Of course, nobody's really free, but you can at least choose a path that gives you some liberty and liberate yourself. And if this card has any symbolic value on my life, it's probably that. And I've been following this path to this day, of course. And it's not an easy path, of course, but I think it was well worth all the obstacle to surmount all the obstacles and to prevail in this struggle.
I imagine you were met with a lot of resistance. How did you overcome it? Did you find you needed to?
Well, you grow every time you surmount resistance. You grow, and of course, initially you were a little child. I was a teenager, not knowing anything, coming from a farm village. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any peers who could have told me how to do it. I didn't have rich parents. Quite on the contrary. So I walked into every wall there was, of course, and you have to learn. And young musicians often ask me if I had some advice for them in the music industry, and I always tell them your playing technique is far less important than your ability to prevail, your patience, your sense of destiny, because that really there were so many people by my side at the time that also had that dream, but just eventually gave up. And I'm not really talented. I'm a very mediocre guitar player. No, seriously, I'm just being totally honest here. The only reason why I'm here tonight is because I prevailed. And that's not necessarily a cool story. It was a very difficult path sometimes, but that's to me the quality that's most required.
That's a fascinating answer. I'd love to explore it more, but I do think we should move on to your present. Perhaps. Would you be willing to take the next card?
If I have to.
You do.
Yes.
Peace.
Oh, Jesus Christ. There is no peace.
There is no peace.
There is no peace. Not in the big picture on this planet ever since we crawled out of the caves, nor in the small universe that is my life. There really is never any peace. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. It's simply a fact. My life the last few years has been, my private life has been dominated by turmoil. And it's a constant attempt to extract myself from that turmoil. And when you manage to extract yourself for a certain period of time, then you realize that on the outset there's also turmoil. Because we human beings haven't learned a thing ever since we became civilized, in quotation marks. So peace is a very nice concept, but it doesn't exist for as long as we exist on this planet, unfortunately.
That's interesting. I feel like from what I've gleaned from your interviews, you have interesting takes on creation and birth and where we come from and who we are as people is related to creation.
You want me to elaborate in that right now?
You can if you want to.
I have to go on stage in an hour.
I'm so sorry. No, you don't have to.
This is like the biggest question of them all.
Maybe next time we'll ask you that question if there is one.
Well, I have noticed that we really think highly of ourselves as a race on this planet, the human race. But I don't see much reason for that, for this arrogance. I think we're highly flawed, and we're proving this every single day. And we call ourselves civilized, but I cannot detect that. Civilized to me is a very sacred word with a lot of meaning, and in our behavior, the last 10,000 years on this planet, I don't really detect a civilized race. We simply have become very proficient in devising means to kill each other and kill all the other beings on this planet and destroy nature. But that to me is not civilization. It's just taking it up a notch from when we only had sticks.
What would be your idea of civilization?
Probably a planet without human beings, even though now the whole world hates me. But I mean, it's simply based. I'm a history fanatic. I have, ever since I was like a young teenager, I escaped into books, and history is one of the areas that fascinates me most. And by now I'm 59, and I really digested so much history, and that I can't really detect too much hope, too much peace, too much civilization, too much sophistication. And unfortunately, sometimes when we actually achieve sophistication, we use it for more technical means to kill each other.
Yeah.
So I know it's very downcast, but it's basically an observation of having been here for 59 years.
Well, it feels like we've been on the brink of collapse for a long time.
Well, yeah. But probably never as much as now.
Yeah, exactly.
I know generations have said that, and generations have had that feeling, but we have more knowledge than ever before, and we really know now it can be proven that we have ruined so much, and there are certain countries that proceed to invade other countries as if it was still the medieval times, and so on. I mean, there's 10 gazillion examples.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can I say? I'm just a guitar player. Yeah.
I'm sure you're more than that. Would you want to see what the future holds?
Yeah, it's going well, isn't it, with these cards? Yeah, let's have another catastrophe.
The message.
The message. I just gave you the message.
You did.
Ungrateful. Totally greedy, ungrateful.
The message is about how we receive information, how we react to like messages, for example, even if it's an email or if it's an offer or a friendship or a connection. And it's also about what we put out into the world, as you acknowledged yourself. So as a musician, you are constantly giving and receiving messages.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's Yes, again, a difficult question. Of course, I think you have a certain responsibility if you're a musician, because you're given a platform to talk to people of your generation, and when you're my age, also people of the next generation. And I myself, I was deeply impressed when I was a young teenage fan standing in the front row. I was deeply impressed about whatever the band said. You're impressionable. You're going into the world. You want to learn. You look up to certain people, and whatever they say, that really hits you. So I think you have a certain responsibility as a musician. You're given a certain responsibility without wanting to go too far right now. I mean, we're not missionaries, you know, but you do speak to a large amount of people who are impressionable, and the message you're spreading should be handled accordingly. But that's just me.
So what's the main message that you want to put out into the world?
Oh God, there's so many. I mean, the main message basically deals with everything we've discussed so far.
Yes.
I try to go through life with open eyes. I hate violence. I hate injustice, not just among humans, also towards other beings on this planet. But I'm also even though I've been given a platform, I'm not a politician, luckily. I'm not a missionary, luckily. And my influence is very limited. All I can do is write lyrics that maybe occasionally make somebody think without wanting to take myself too serious. I'm a very flawed person too. And everything I say here with these grandiose words, you know, there's 59 years of a lot of failings and searching behind that. I'm probably the most imperfect person you can meet. But I try. You know.
I've definitely met more imperfect people.
Well.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to take too much because you are going on stage very soon.
I'm very grateful that you waited for this interview. It's a pleasure. It's a very unusual interview. I'm sorry that we came here late and everything.
No.
But thank you very much for giving me this yet again platform.
Oh, well, thank you for also just giving us your time. It's been so cool to talk to you.
I have something to say.
Yeah?
Pedasuchte.
Better Nice. I like that a lot.
All right.
I never thought I'd hear you call me that. That's
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching, everybody.
Did I just ruin the whole thing?
No, you made it amazing. You made it amazing.